Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to friends in the United States, colleagues across the United States, and to friends and colleagues across the Middle East, particularly in the UAE and elsewhere. My name is Danny Seabright. I'm the president of the US-UAE Business Council, and we're honored to bring you a panel discussion today on revitalizing the UAE hospitality sector, the near future ahead in the COVID-19 environment. We're joined today by a very distinguished group of panelists. All of the companies represented today on the webinar are members of the US-UAE Business Council and are strong supporters of our work, and we want to say thank you and express our great appreciation for that. First, we have Mr. Jean Favre, Senior Vice President of Hospitality at the DAMAC Group, Mr. Jonas Maheller, Vice President, Sales and Marketing, Europe and Americas at the Jumeirah Group, Mr. Craig Senior, Director of Global Sales for the Middle East and Africa, Rosewood Hotel Group, Mr. Sandeep Walia, Area Vice President, UAE, Marriott International, and Mr. Bill Walsh, CEO of the Viceroy Hotel Group. And I have to say that Bill gets the prize and the award this morning, not from calling in maybe as far away, but for calling in so early because he's located in Los Angeles and it's very early there in California. So ladies and gentlemen, we're also honored today to have a number of important institutions and groups on the call. We have Abu Dhabi Convention and Exhibition Bureau, Department of Culture and Tourism of Abu Dhabi, and the Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We have journalists on the call today, and this will be recorded live on the record and will be on YouTube and available to everyone after the event is over. The purpose again of today's webinar is to discuss the current situation with hospitality venues in the UAE and in the United States as they relate to travel, tourism, and trade between our two countries, the US and the United Arab Emirates. And with that, I'd like to turn it over. Well, excuse me, one second. Before I turn it over to Jean, I want to, David, if you could put up on the screen, we just published this morning with the help of our member companies here on the call, a new study on the hospitality sector in the UAE with inputs from each one of them about health updates and health and security in their property groups. That study has been sent out via email, and it will also be part of the email that you get after this webinar. There will be a link to it so that you can download it and look at it as well. So with that, if we could go back to main screen, and if I could ask Jean from DAMAC to say a few words, opening statement. Each panelist will give an opening statement of 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll have a group discussion. Over to you, Jean.
Thank you, Danny. Hello, everybody. Hope you are all safe in your own area. Just a word on DAMAC. You know, DAMAC is a property developer company, but since many years has developed DAMAC Hospitality arm under the name of DAMAC Hotels and Resorts, and operate since now, I think they were the first in UAE to operate what we call service apartment. We have about 1,300 units in Dubai, mostly in the Business Bay area, to cater for that type of clientele. And then last year, we opened a beautiful hotel called Paramount Hotel, 824 keys, with 1,200 residential attached to that hotel. And you know, the Paramount Hotel is obviously what I would call the Hollywood glamour and California cool spirit. And obviously, we were hit by COVID-19 right after the ramp up of the hotel. To say a few words about the situation in Dubai in particular, obviously during the months of April, occupancy dropped as low as the low 20%. In some hotels, many hotels closed as well. We remain open considering our business model of residential and hotel hotel property. And we have seen in the past few months, I would say since July, a very strong influx of serviced apartment requests. So occupancy in that particular business area, which is our Maison brand, in those 4 units, occupancy have kind of caught back, not at the same rate, of course, but you know, we're running high 80%, and this is obviously mostly due to local business. From the Paramount side hotel, obviously because of the lockdown and because of the issue on travel control, obviously occupancy has not recovered, but we are seeing some little sign of positive recovery, but it's still a long way to go. In terms of Dubai, obviously they have been extremely stringent, and we have been applying all the rules and safety measure in order to make our customer safe and still welcome. It's not always very welcoming to welcome people with a mask, but all our staff have been trained and make your best effort to make the stay of those customers as amicable and hospitable as possible. I'm sure we will go into more detail, but maybe a closing word. Damac is still looking to expand, are still looking at opportunities in the months to come. And we obviously are very delighted to be on this call today to talk to our American friends, in particular on the Paramount, because I'm sure you will understand the connection there. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Jean, very much. I very much appreciate it. I want to talk to you about the service department a little bit later in the discussion, if we could. I'd love for Jonas now to speak, another of the UAE homegrown brands with Jumeirah. Jonas, over to you. Jonas, you're on mute. If you could unmute. There you go.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Danny. And I would like first to say it's an honor and pleasure to have been invited to such an esteemed group of panelists and be able to share our points of view in the US-UAE Business Council and relationship. As you rightly mentioned, Jumeirah roots and DNA are proudly embedded in the UAE. And I think this is a great opportunity from our side to share our points of view on how we see the recovery happening, but also to listen to our colleagues and learn from them, not only the colleagues, but also the business community, give us a precise and fruitful thoughts about how we expect this recovery to happen. I think these things are extremely useful to happen, and thank you so much for the invitation. And I would also like to congratulate you, your team, and US-UAE Business Council for the fantastic role that you play in the signature of the Abraham peace deal between the UAE and Israel. I think that this is a remarkable and historical moment for all of us in the region. And I would think that this will also bring a boost of confidence to the market, to everyone here in this call. So I wanted also to congratulate you and your team for the crucial role on this one.
Thank you so much, Jonas. Very, very much appreciate that. You want to say any word at the moment, or we wait for the discussion about how Jumeirah is doing at the moment and which properties are open and that sort of thing?
I'm happy to move to that part when we go into the details.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If we could move now, please, to Craig Senior, the Director of Sales of Middle East and Africa for Rosewood Hotel Group. Craig, over to you.
Thank you very much, Danny. And yes, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I hope in your respective cities around the world you are all safe and well, and I share my thoughts with you as my previous colleagues have done. I would just like to start with a little bit of a historical journey for Rosewood. We started with our first property in Dallas in 1979, which is known as the Rosewood Mansion on Turtle Creek. And today we have 28 properties spanning 16 countries in operation, with a further 19 in various stages of development or construction around the world. In Americas, we have 14 in operation, including the Carlisle in New York and our property in Washington, DC. European collection is 3, which includes London, Paris, and Tuscany. And the Asia Pacific Rim has a total of 11 properties in operation with 8 in development. In the UAE, we just have 1 property in Abu Dhabi, which is the Rosewood, located on Al Marriott Island, which is really the center of the international financial hub for Abu Dhabi. The Abu Dhabi Global Market Square is there. The property is connected to the Galleria shopping mall, very high-end boutique mall. And we also have a direct link for the people who are not aware of the property to the Cleveland Clinic, which is now fully operational. Obviously, the market landscape has changed for us all since March of this year. I don't think any one of us would have ever thought we'd be in a market where airline traffic is halted completely. It's the first for us, and it's basically made us all have to adapt. And in that, Rosewood has basically globally introduced a commitment to care policy, which has been guided by local health authorities' advice and the World Health Organization, of which we are working very closely with. In terms of Abu Dhabi, we've created a very comprehensive and launched a wellness program, which is basically to entice visitors back to the retail outlet on Al Marriott Island, the leisure lifestyle of the island, and also to the property. In conjunction with the Department of Culture and Tourism of Abu Dhabi, we have been awarded a Go Safe certificate, which is obviously a very important factor in the current market and environment. We achieved that with outstanding results, and I'm sure we'll be coming on to points of this later in terms of cleanliness, hygiene, and the guidelines of Go Safe, which I'm delighted to say again that the property passed with flying colours. It's obviously a very important element in today's market for travel. Back to you, Danny. Thank you.
Greg, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Next, we have Sandeep Walliaf, the Area Vice President for the UAE for Marriott International. I'm going to just say right up front, I've stayed in all of the member hotels that are online here today, but I have to say that Marriott gives me a lot of choice with a lot of different brands. So Sandeep, over to you. Please give us an overview of where Marriott is at the moment in the UAE and elsewhere.
Thank you, Danny. Thanks for the introduction. And first of all, thank you to U.S. Business Council to give this opportunity to Marriott to represent. And thank you, colleagues. I look forward to the conversation over the next 1 hour. I think most of us have already wished all the listeners and the viewers good health. And just at the cost of repeating it, say that again, and wish you good health. I think that's the most important in today's times. And I think I somewhere want to kind of start by saying I feel blessed to be in this part of the world in UAE. I think UAE is known for being one of the safest and the cleanest countries, but I think in this particular pandemic, they have again proven to be doing an excellent job in safeguarding the people living here. I think the biggest thing for me, if you ask me, has been the speed to action of the country, where as soon as they started early stages, it was one of the countries which went into a lockdown to start with. It had night curfews in order to curtail things, and I think that's the reason partly that we've also seen a bit of a comeback earlier than a lot of other countries and a lot of other areas, and I'll touch upon that as well. So I think it's great to see this country do so well. And I think this kind of does give me the fact that I believe that my glass is half full. And somewhere when a vaccine is found, a cure is found, or it vanishes one day, this virus, travel will come back. And it'll come back with a vengeance. And I think we've seen a lot of pent-up demand. When you look at Marriott today in UAE, We have about 59 properties across 19 brands. Internationally, overall, Marriott has 30 brands, but we're represented here by 19, which of course includes the Bulgari, the St. Regis, Ritz-Carlton, W, Luxury Collection, to name a few of them. But out of the 59 properties, 80% are open today. And that's heartening to see. And I think we'll get into a bit of a conversation as we move along in this call as to what kind of businesses are coming in first and what kind of properties are doing better. But I think that's a heartening number to see that 80% are open. It's also been partially because how Marriott International had set up a Marriott Global Cleanliness Council, which is kind of a bit of a mix. It was a mix of internal hospitality experts from within, and also on the other side, people from the industry of hygiene, cleanliness, and partners like Ecolab, where we partnered with them to come up with standards which have now been rolled out in all our Marriott properties to see that we can welcome guests back, they feel safe, and we can give that stamp of, so to speak, security to say that we are clean. Because today, when I think a traveler is traveling across the airport, or even within the city, moving from one place to another, the hotel tends to be the safe haven or the oasis, and we need to cater to that need. So I think that's something which we've been able to do well because of the initiatives that we took initially earlier on with the Marriott Global Cleanliness Council. So I think that has kind of led us to open 80% of the hotels in UAE. With that, Danny, I'll turn it back to you, and then a little later get on to the discussion of what kind of green shoots we're seeing in UAE and what kind of hotels are doing better than others for now.
Sandeep, thank you. Very much appreciated. I'm going to turn to Bill Walsh now with Viceroy, and Bill's in Los Angeles. But Bill, like Rosewood, who has a property in Georgetown in Washington, D.C., Viceroy just opened a new property in Washington, D.C., which is a few blocks from my home there. So I'm very excited to come visit that property in the next few weeks and have a tour and see what you're doing. So please, Bill, over to you.
Thanks, Danny, and thanks again, as my colleagues have said, for putting on this forum. I think it's very important, and we look forward to welcoming you to Viceroy Washington, D.C. in the near future. Yes, good morning from Los Angeles. Viceroy is an international management company. We have 16 properties. About 75% of our portfolio has reopened. All but one of our hotels closed during the pandemic. We're seeing resorts do better than urban hotels. We're seeing some urban markets do better than other urban markets. And in some cases, catastrophic is not an overstatement. I think where we're seeing markets in the United States that have typically been dependent upon large group movements of people, citywide conventions, annual gatherings, they've been pretty much wiped out, and it will take some time to come back. On the other hand, drive-to markets are doing particularly well. People seem significantly more confident here to get in their car than to go to an airport. Drive-to markets that have open spaces. Our resort on the mountain of Snowmass, just outside of Aspen in Colorado, a wonderful ski resort, has had a decent summer. People have felt confident to get in their cars, go to Aspen, be up a mountain, be in what they consider to be clean surroundings. So it's different stories in different locations, as I think it probably is for everybody. What I would just like to bring our attention to, and we talk as an industry consistently about the effect on occupancy and average rate, GOP, EBITDA, and profits, as we should, and as we should focus on those things. I think the real tragedy in what's happened to our industry over the last number of months is the effect on our colleagues, particularly junior frontline colleagues, and the effect on unemployment that I don't think we talk enough about. Right now here in the United States, about 2/3 of hotels, about 65% of hotels are doing less than 50% occupancy. So business levels have not come back. What that means is that more than 4 out of every 10 employees that were employed in the hospitality industry in the United States are still not working. Let's call it 50% of people are not back at work, and those 50% that are working for the most part either reduced hours or on reduced salaries. 68% of hotels here in the United States have less than half their typical pre-crisis staff levels, be that permanent or casual staff. And without further government assistance, 74% of US hotels say that they will be forced into further layoffs. So I think that what we're faced, recognizing that travel, tourism, and hospitality is arguably the largest employer on the globe, is the fact that the immediacy of impact. People came to work on a Friday, we realized the significance of the pandemic on a Saturday, and we furloughed on a Sunday, we laid them off on a Monday. I'm exaggerating for impact, but not by much. And I think that the obligation on us as hospitality leaders is to stabilize our businesses to the best of our abilities, knowing that we can only control what we can control, but to create circumstances that gives us the best opportunity to get as many people back into employment as we possibly can do. And we'll do that by speed to market, by putting processes and protocols in place in our hotels that give guests the confidence to return to hospitality environments. We'll do that by collaborating as an industry. Viceroy is part of the Global Hotel Alliance, which is a now Dubai-based international alliance. And we members, the close to 30 members of GHA, are working together to try to encourage people to come back to hospitality so that we can re-employ the incredible and now displaced and probably quite frankly terrified group of people who make us who we are and who make us what we do. So I'd just like to finish, Danny, in joining what my colleagues have said, in wishing everybody who's watching and all of our colleagues who work in this industry good health. But I think one of the other things that we need to focus on when we talk about that is not just physical health. It's not just about wearing a mask. It's not just about not contracting COVID through social distancing and appropriate behaviors. I think that the mental health impact on our industry has been extraordinary. And I think the stresses and strains that people are going through is something that we as leaders need to focus on and to create opportunities to give as much assistance as we possibly can. Danny, you're on mute.
Sorry. Thanks so much, Bill, and thank you so much for bringing it back to the personal level. I mean, this is all about people at the end of the day, and you know, the economic carnage that is going to transpire and continue transpiring with restaurants, with F&B, with hotels, with the airline industry. It's just amazing, and these are real people and people's jobs and people that we all know and work with and our colleagues, and it's something that we all have to think about and be very careful with. So thank you for making those points. We will take questions from the audience. I have 2 or 3 in the queue, which I promise I will work into the discussion here and get to. So if you do have a question, please put it in the Q&A box or the chat box, and we'll get to it. But I want to start in the discussion here a little bit. I'm going to go to Jean, and I'm going to ask him a few questions that we've talked about here. You did sign an agreement last year, Jean, with Rotana to operate the hotel apartment project that you have at Damac Towers. Are you actively scouting for additional hotel operators to grow your business in the UAE and the GCC? Is that something that's on your radar, or are you holding for the moment?
Well, thanks for the question. Actually, I should have maybe mentioned on my introduction, that we have signed a number of HMA with various hotel group, namely Radisson and Rotana for now. But we are actually talking with many other operators on other opportunity. So as I was saying in my introduction, indeed, we are looking at expanding and developing our hospitality arm further. And also, I think to echo what Bill was saying, that will also help to bring back hopefully some employment opportunities for the people we had unfortunately to let go back in April and May. And I think the speed to market also is very important, and we in Damac Hospitality have taken a lot of action towards sales activity and marketing activity to make sure that we maintain some level of acceptable occupancy so we can recruit and rehire these good people we had with us. Yes, to be clear, we are looking at new opportunities. We are talking to many operators globally. And certainly what you echo to at your introduction regarding this new opportunity between Israel and UAE, we have actually had discussion for a number of months, and hopefully we are looking at good opportunities in the coming months in order to see how we can alleviate the pressure we have today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean. Craig, what differentiates your beautiful property in Abu Dhabi's Al Marriott Island from other Abu Dhabi hotels? Give us a few points.
Sure. I think initially, what I would just like to say is during this pandemic, the property has remained open throughout the entire time, and mainly that sort of is supporting, because it's actually a residential component as well as a hotel. So that was very important to maintain and to sort of announce that. The location I touched on a little earlier. Al Marriott Island is one of the most upcoming areas of Abu Dhabi, very close proximity to Reem Island, which is the new development side. We are within minutes to Saadiyat, to the Louvre Museum, and sort of a very short journey to the airport, 25 minutes, and the major attraction areas, Ferrari World, etc. But I think one of the main points to sort of drive home is when the property opened, Rosewood has the sense of place angle, which it brings local culture and a local heritage touch to every single property globally. And certainly Abu Dhabi did that in the opening, and it has maintained it very, very well. Basically, it's brought the desert to the water. It's located on the front, albeit with no beach. So it has a business component very much from a Sunday to Thursday in the Arabian working environment. And the weekend, it becomes very much a staycation option as well. Touching from the local business when you can move traffic from Dubai to Abu Dhabi on a weekend. It's always had a very, very strong support on a weekend leisure aspect from both Dubai and the GCC.
Craig, thanks for that. And before I turn to Sandeep, I have a very dear friend, Stefan Fuchs, is on the line. He was the GM of Jumeirah's property down in Abu Dhabi at one point. And I just would like to, the Etihad Towers, and I would just like to ask a question that he's posed, and I'm going to add a little context to it. He's asking about the demographics that you're all facing as travelers start coming back. And obviously the business traveler is probably the high-end business traveler, or the business traveler is going to be one of the ones that's might take the longest to return. But tourism, and especially younger people coming back to stay at your brands. Do you see any trends in the demographics and this question's for all of you, that you can identify right now that are going to be the first movers, the second movers, the third movers, if you will? Anyone want to jump in and give a comment or a thought on that?
Yeah, sure. Danny, maybe I'll take that one. And maybe I'll kind of put it in a context of what I was mentioning earlier in terms of the hotels that are opening. So as I was mentioning, we have 59 hotels and 19 brands. And I would say that we are seeing business come in 4 pillars. One is something which Jean and Craig alluded to, which was the residential. So if we do have hotels like Grosvenor House or Marriott Harbour or Marriott Executive Apartments, which are residential based. So that, of course, those are hotels that never close. So they were kind of a bit of a hedge, if I may put it that way, in the group of hotels we have. So that was the first which never closed. In fact, they continued to be on high occupancy. And in fact, they even saw an increase in occupancy because more and more people wanted to shift into a more secure environment. I think the second kind of hotels which we saw, or the second kind of business, talking to Stefan's question, is the fact that we saw a lot of staycation business. Obviously, people can't travel out, people couldn't travel in, but having stayed in apartments, as soon as we saw UAE open up to not have curfews or not to have a lockdown, we saw a lot of staycation business. In fact, it's been heartening to see the results of July and August with the staycation business, and to the extent that some of the resorts, for example, the beach resorts like the Royal Meridian or W Palm or Ritz-Carlton Dubai or Bulgari, St. Regis in Abu Dhabi, they got a lot of business on the beach resorts. The second piece within the staycation was the desert properties, for example, the Al-Wadi or Al-Maha or Al-Wataba, where we got a lot of staycation business. So those were kind of the second pillar that started coming in. And I think somewhere in the second, when we're talking about hotels, we are limiting this discussion a bit to rooms, but I'll just maybe extend it to food and beverage, which has become a big part. And for us, we have 300 restaurants today in UAE between these 59 properties. So it's a big business. In fact, 40% of the revenue comes from food and beverage. And we've seen a lot of business come into F&B. Yes, it's limited to last year because of the social distancing of tables and other restrictions that one needs to follow, but otherwise a great business to see. So I think that's been the second pillar. I think moving forward are the two other pillars which we would start seeing. And the next one we feel would be the regional travel. We have Oman opening up from 1st October. We have partially got Saudi opened up, and 1st Jan, it completely opens up for travel to UAE. So I think you're going to see regional travel and then eventually getting to international travel. But in terms of, I think a part of the question was the younger guest. Maybe I'll kind of stretch it a bit and say the young at heart rather than the young at age. No pun intended. We have brands like the Aloft and the W, which kind of cater to the young at heart, and that has seen those kind of guests use more of those hotels as well. I don't know if, Stefan, that answers your question, but yes, we certainly see some of the brands getting used more by the younger at heart. And why I'm kind of stretching it to the young at heart, because you could see, and I've seen a few retired people coming to the W at the Palm and staying there. So it's not really only an age factor, it's just more what appeals to you. But yeah, I think we've seen this business come in a staged manner in this form.
So I'm going to summarize. You said staycation, F&B, regional travel, and international travel in that order. Do any of my friends with the U.S. with the brands that also are in the U.S. in addition to yours, of course, Stefan, Bill and Craig, does that? How do you want to add anything to that from a standpoint of the trend lines we're seeing and what we can expect?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it please, Craig, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Bill, please.
Thanks, Danny. I touched on it a little bit in my introduction. I think what we're seeing happening over here is first and foremost, the demand levels are extraordinarily different by hotel type. We're seeing resorts do significantly better than urban hotels. And within those urban markets, as I mentioned, cities that are dependent upon group movements of people are doing very low occupancies. I believe currently in the United States, urban hotels are averaging about a 38% occupancy across the board. Many of them are buying that occupancy. In certain markets, what we're seeing is that it's a race to the bottom in terms of pricing. And I don't necessarily, as I'm sure many of my colleagues in the panel will agree, I don't necessarily agree that that's the right thing to do. I think that people traveling at the moment is more about courage than cost. It's about those guests having the willingness to go back to a hospitality environment and are looking to make sure that we're doing the right thing in those environments to welcome them back. I think that the younger guest is a little bit more courageous, and sometimes that courage butts up against a line where we as hoteliers have to ensure that their behavior on property is adhering to what our more conservative guests are looking for. We as a company are following CDC guidelines. Every one of our environments is a mandatory masked environment. We're actually running this week, which I never thought was a phrase I'd have to use in my career. We're running de-escalation training for our managers in how to diffuse situations where interacting with a guest who is refusing to wear a mask, who is refusing to respect social distancing guidelines. So we're seeing different things in different places.
That's a very different situation
at the moment.
It's a very different situation in the U.S. in that regard, isn't it? When you have to deal with that issue. I teach a class at the local college, a class on the Middle East. And it's very, very similar. And people are getting into fights in the grocery store and at the Target because they, one wearing a mask and one not. And I can only imagine what it's like in a hotel brand like this. Craig, do you want to add to that discussion a little?
Yeah, please, Danny. It very much follows what Bill has addressed. I mean, we opened a couple of resort properties. Number one was the Miramar Beach in Montecito. We opened it just before 4th of July. So the business initially was driven from a food and beverage component, obviously all locally. But then it's very much the staycation started to come over the weekends. Very same in the Mexican resorts. It was a very gradual opening from July, August onwards. Very slow pickup at first, but once people realize properties are reopening, I think people are ready to go. Obviously, travel is an inverted word there. They're traveling locally, they're traveling closer to home, but it's a very, very similar story to what Bill touched on.
Jonas, I want to draw you into the conversation here a little bit and ask you to say a little bit more about Jumeirah. You have 24 properties, including, of course, the Burj Al Arab. Tell us a little bit about this trend line as you see it from Jumeirah's standpoint, and particularly how you're innovating and redefining luxury.
Thank you, Danny. I think innovation and redefining luxury were the birthmarks of Jumeirah when 2 decades ago we actually opened the Burj Al Arab, which was definitely a disruptor into the market, and soon immediately became an icon, not just for our brand, but most importantly for UAE as a destination. When we start thinking about what is being disruptive right now and innovative and redefining luxury, I think it's important for us to have in mind the effect that this pandemic is causing in terms of changing consumer behavior. See, for example, what is happening right now as we speak in terms of the number of people that are working from home or the amount of hours that all of us spend in doing video conferencing. When we then transport this to the hospitality sector, as much as we can be creative and innovative, it's quite difficult to transmit this through a video conferencing uniqueness of a service environment like the hospitality. So I think Jumeirah, what is doing in terms of being at the forefront of innovation and redefining luxury, was to actually being quite effective and quick in responding to the levels of regaining consumer confidence to come back to the hotels. I think that was the biggest challenge that we had. And we actually built our strategy in 3 pillars. The first one and foremost was to partner with a certified health and safety lab that could put the stamp and regain, I would say, consumer confidence in terms of stay safe when coming to our properties. And we were very proud to be the first hotel with Bureau Veritas, with Jumeirah Al Nassim, to get the stamp of the Stay Safe, the first hotel in the world to have that stamp. And that was just the beginning of the phase that we then tried to complete as well to other properties, and currently have already 7 properties with our portfolio that has the stamp, and the other ones are on the pipeline currently to get that certification, which is great for consumer confidence. The other thing I think it was important from Jumeirah's side is we always still keep innovating. And one of the pillars of our brand proposition is and it's in line with what Sandeep said, the importance of F&B. we are very proud to be able to offer excellent food and beverage experience in our properties. And I think in terms of pandemic, where people still want to have this sort of experience, we didn't forget those pillars. And we actually, during this period, enhanced and increased our value proposition in terms of food and beverage, and actually created 2 pop-up restaurants in our properties at the seafront. One which is called the French Riviera, which is serving a sort of a chic, elegant Southern France Côte d'Azur cuisine. And most recently this month, at our iconic Burj Al Arab, we just opened a new restaurant called Sol that is located in the sea platform of our hotel. That is a mix between Portuguese and Spanish specialities, which has been having a huge success, not only with our resident hotel guests, but most importantly with the UAE local community. So I think food and beverage is playing a key role to bring back clients again and to experience the hotel side under the new health and safety conditions. The third element, I would say, was also to revamp and upgrade a little bit of our product and room proposition. We saw, and I think Sandeep and Bill mentioned that, and Jean as well, the huge demand of a specific niche market of clients that want to have complete privacy when staying in hotels. And we are actually in a great position with some of our properties at the beachfront, where we have a huge range of villas and service apartments in many cases, that we decided to actually upgrade and enhance the amenities that we serve both in room and outside. And in some cases, even launching new products. For example, at Dar Al Masyaf, we just opened a 10-bedroom villa with a Majlis also available, with a courtyard, private courtyard and butler service. Or even recently at the Jumeirah Al Nasim, a brand new royal penthouse suite with 5 bedrooms, unique patio and private outdoors and fitness room and amazing views of the Burj Al Arab. So I think these 3 strategies definitely help us to regain consumer confidence and have a lot of our regular clients coming back to the hotels. But most importantly, and some of my colleagues already mentioned the importance of staycations and vacations, to come and experience, in many cases for the first time, our hotels in Dubai. You're on with Danny.
Thank you. I just saw that. Thank you, Jonas. I really appreciate that. And that was a great overview of where Jumeirah is. I want to give a shout out at the moment real quickly to Emirates and to Etihad, our 2 key airline partners. And my dear friend Joel Godowski at Emirates underscores what he and his colleagues at Etihad tell me all the time. And for you all, he says at Emirates, we are methodically growing our network, and with our hotel partners on this call, look forward to positive, brighter days on the horizon. What Dubai and Abu Dhabi and the Gulf in general are doing has been remarkable, and very much look forward to traveling again. Now I want to, as we say in the hospital or the healthcare business, the patient experience, I want to just spend 5 minutes on the traveler experience if you can. I, before the pandemic, was coming to the UAE twice a month and staying in all of your hotels at different times. When I come the next time, the first time, if you will, in 7 or 8 or 9 months, whatever it turns out to be, if I travel in October, what's my experience going to be like? I have to get a COVID test if I'm coming into, let's just assume we're coming into Dubai. I have to get a COVID test within 98 hours that's negative. I arrive at the airport, and do I get tested again? Maybe not for COVID, but I at least get a heat wand to my temperature. And then am I getting a taxi? Am I getting in a private car? I'm coming to one of your properties. What's the check-in process like? How am I going to feel? How are you going to reassure me from the health and safety standpoint of staying in a room? And then what are my dine-in options? Are there any or not? Am I coming downstairs and sitting out on the beach to eat? Just a few of you just to take a couple minutes and just give us a few thoughts on the experience that I will have when I travel for the first time here in a month or so back to Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Who
wants to start? Go ahead, Jean. You start.
Yeah. Look, Hopefully, Danny, next time you travel, which I hope will not be in 9 months, but maybe closer to us.
No, 9 months. 9 months from the start of COVID is what I was
Well,
saying. Okay.
I know, no, that's what you meant. Yes,
Okay.
but I hope by then, there is great progress which are being made. Protocol are being improved. Maybe testing is going to be simplified. Some countries are reducing the quarantine period. Consumer confidence might be restored. Nevertheless, we have implemented the stringent protocol and rewriting brand standards for the future, for the worst case scenario to the lowest case scenario. And, there will be like a kind of threshold and level of where and when we will decide to either make it easier to customer and make it easier for the stay. But I think we have to hopefully remain positive before the vaccine get to us eventually. There are a number of progress which are being made, which hopefully will, lift a bit the difficulty of traveling back and forth. We at DAMAC obviously keep a very close control with authorities and with our country partners. We work on 4 key segments, like most of my colleagues. Corporate, leisure. So we have to cater differently depending if you come from leisure or corporate. Meeting, which represent in some hotels 20 to 25% of the business, in my view, will be the most affected in the coming months and years. One of the challenge which maybe I want to raise there is that people are going to change the way they do business. And large meeting, large convention hotel, in my view, will probably suffer more, while maybe airport hotel will have a better chance to do business, because then you won't have to travel in the center of the city and stay at the airport and just go and forth very, very quickly. So what I think we need as hoteliers is to continue demonstrating that we are very serious about COVID-19, and all the action and the brand standard will be part of the way we work and we live in the coming months. And we will continue reassuring our customers, our partners, that every measure is being done. And through training of our staff, through reinforcing the message, I think more and more we will come to terms with this COVID-19, and hopefully business will recover somewhat in the next months.
Thanks, Jean. Sandeep, if I come to the Ritz-Carlton DIFC, or Jonas, if I come to my Emirates Tower across the street, just give me really quickly, because we're getting a little short on time. Just give me 3 or 4 sentences first, Sandeep, and then Jonas. What's going to be immediately different to me in the check-in experience and the stay experience that's going to reassure me of your safety? Go ahead, Sandeep.
I think, maybe one step back. I know you said to be quick, but I think the communication is the most important. So, and I'll divide it into 3 quick steps. I would say one is when you're even booking the Ritz-Carlton DIFC in this case. As soon as you go onto the website, you're going to see something called the What to Expect page. So before you do a booking, you're going to have that link over there, which just tells you exactly as to which restaurants are open, what part of the spa is open, the fact that the gym is open, and so on and so forth. So you exactly know what amenities are open and what are not open according to the local regulations. So I think it gives you a clear idea as to what to expect. The second is that before you're going to pack your bags in October and fly to UAE, you would get a pre-arrival email reminding you of what's open again, what's not, and things that might have changed in the interim. So I think once Daniel is traveling from US to UAE, lands in Dubai and knows what to expect and what's open and what's not, I think there is no surprise, and that's the important part.
Okay,
now,
Jonas, I'm going to let Jonas then finish. That's excellent for the pre-arrival. So Jonas, on arrival at the Emirates Tower, what's going to jar me? What's going to be different? What's going to reassure me?
First of all, a big smile of our team there to welcome you back at the hotel and be able to and be happy to be open for business. That's the first thing that we'll recognize next time you check in with us. I think, like Sandeep said, and the biggest concern is to minimize as much as possible any sort of possible contact that can generate an awkward situation for the clients. So Jumeirah, like all the companies here in this panel, are doing amazing efforts to provide a more contactless, touchless experience to our guests, from check-in even to your stay in the room, and even how you go into our restaurants. You know, what before was a normal thing to have been delivered like a paper menu to you. Now we are striving to have our guests using the QR codes to have a touchless experience in almost every touch points that you have in our property. Many other things that you will not notice in your naked eye, but similar examples are, for example, that we are increasing the circulation of air 3 times more than before in all the public areas and the rooms in our hotels. Also, when you check into the room, you'll see something that was unthinkable pre-COVID before, but safety comes first for our guests, which is a set of a kit with hygienic stuff that you have there, from masks to swipes and sanitizing gel that you have there. And many other details that you have in terms of housekeeping and room service details as well that you have there. And we have further increased, for example, our eButler app that allows you to basically order any sort of service directly from the app that when you stay at Jumeirah property. This will also minimize the sort of interaction that you have, but also have highest levels of services when you're staying with us next time. Which I agree with John. I hope it's soon and we don't have to wait eight months for your next visit to the UAE.
All right, James or Jonas, thank you. Bill, quick intervention, please.
Yeah, quick intervention, Danny. I think, look, kudos to two of my colleagues in Dubai that they have all of the protocols and necessary processes in place. Not surprised at all. Having been in Dubai for 8 years from 2000 and been with Jumeirah, clearly the ability to implement quickly is great, and the collaboration that exists between DTCM, between the airlines, between Abu Dhabi Tourism, is strong and important. I think one thing that we remain very conscious of at Viceroy is, what do our guests want us to do? And what our guests want us to do is to put those protocols in place. They want us to put those processes in place, but they want us to not forget our purpose and not allow process to suffocate purpose. And at the end of the day, what are we here to do? We're here to create sensation. We're here to create inspiration. We're here to help our guests create memories that will last them for a lifetime. At orientation, I always used to say, 30 years in the industry, I've never met a guest whose intention when coming to a hotel was to be bored. Now, I've never met a guest whose intention coming to a hotel was to check into a hospital. And that's not what they want us to do. So we have to have those processes in place. Now more than ever, it's the time when we should be deploying random acts of kindness. We should be reminding ourselves that hospitality is about human beings making other human beings happy. Our generosity needs to come to the fore. What I'm seeing happening is business levels are suppressed, profitability is compressed, and therefore we're cutting expenses and we're cutting out the heart of the experience, what it is that makes our experience special. So I would encourage hospitality around the globe, remember why we're here. Do the right thing by our guests to give them the confidence to come back, to make them feel safe, but do not do that in sacrifice of our primary purpose. And we can't physically put our arms around our guests, but we can do it through our acts of kindness. We can do it through our emotional interactions, and we need to love them and hug them more than ever. People's frequency of travel has been compromised. Their expectations of quality has not.
Bill, that's outstanding. That should be our wrap up, in my view. But I have two small questions from the audience that if I don't get an answer to, I'll feel like I haven't done my job. So I'm going to entertain those two quick questions with very short answers. This is from one attendee who says, I've been trying to get a small group to visit the UAE, specifically Abu Dhabi, for a while. Although the group thinks that the UAE looks dynamic, some in the group are members of the LGBTQ community and might be afraid to travel to the UAE. Should they be worried about being harassed by UAE authorities or people in Abu Dhabi? Who from Abu Dhabi wants to just give a quick couple sentence response to that question? Craig, you want to say something? You're on mute.
Sorry, Danny, I was on mute then. My apologies. I mean, listen, Abu Dhabi and Dubai, in my opinion, I mean, I've lived in Dubai now for over 20 years in 2 stints, and I can encompass Abu Dhabi into the same explanation. It's one of the most safest countries, respected countries I have ever lived, worked, or visited, and I can virtually say anybody who makes the effort to travel, stay, and visit the UAE, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Al Ain will have a most wonderful time in a very safe and secure environment.
I'm just going to add to that. You know, there are that being respectful of another culture and not flaunting or being rude or doing things that might be considered, you know, very, very embarrassing. I think that holds in general for anyone coming to a foreign country and visiting and wanting to partake of the experience. So I would reassure anyone from the LGBTQ community that was going to be visiting the UAE that they would have no issue whatsoever for a wonderful trip. My last question, I'm gonna we're gonna wrap up on this if we can. Just a quick thought: the historic Abraham Accords in Washington last week, the opening of travel, trade, tourism between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. Are you guys all ready? Are you going to be ready for a wave of Israeli tourists and Jewish tourists from around the world coming for kosher meals next spring at Passover and that experience? Is everybody in the UAE really excited about this opportunity? Jonas, why don't I ask you real quickly, and then I'll ask Sandeep. Just a sentence or two.
Even though I'm based in London, but I interact with my colleagues on a daily basis in UAE, and I can tell you that the news came with enormous joy and happiness. I think anything that is to solidify a peace in any region is good, first of all, for mankind, and second, of course, for business. So I think that is amazing news for all of us, and it's exciting news even now in this period where we're going to readjust and making sure that we can cater the needs for the Israeli market into our properties. I think we are in a comfortable position because being one of our pillars of the brand, offering unique, I would say, dining experiences, that is something that we are more than happy to take on, and making sure that if we were able to deliver unique restaurant options in our hotels, that is definitely another one to add on eventually, if we have the chance, in order to cater for any sort of nationality that we may have. And of course, Israeli is not exception to that rule.
Sandeep, I've stayed in the Ritz-Carlton in Herzliya, and I'm hoping that the Ritz-Carltons in both countries are going to have a deal going on here. What can you tell us about your perspective from Marriott?
Yeah, in fact, I think I used to travel to Israel very often when I was based in my previous role in Europe, opening the Ritz-Carlton at Herzliya, and then of course since then we've also opened the luxury collection in W in Tel Aviv. Without getting really into the hotel name, we've already had groups come and stay from Israel. Just recently, last week, in both Abu Dhabi and Dubai in our hotels. So we are excited. We are excited for our friends from Israel to be traveling into UAE and staying in our hotels. There are a few specific needs the guests have, and which we are getting ready to cater to. So absolutely, yes. It's going to be a pleasure to welcome the guests from there.
Thank you, Sandeep. Gentlemen, this has been a fascinating panel. We've had a very good response and turnout, and as I said, we'll put the video of this on YouTube very shortly. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, out of your afternoon in the UAE, out of your mornings in the US, and joining. And my best of luck and my best wishes, and to come back to points that Bill made about the staff and the teams and about being kind. This is where we have to be right now, and really, really appreciate all that you're doing to help get all of us back to some kind of new normal, whatever that might be in the months ahead. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. have a wonderful day and look to see you all soon in travel in the UAE, in Los Angeles, wherever it might be. All the best.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you.